Could extraterrestrials really have been present at the Fukushima meltdown? And might they have helped to prevent it from being an even more catastrophic disaster?
A number of witnesses reported that there were UFOs hovering around the power station, and that even beams of light were coming down from these UFOs and doing something to the nuclear power plants and keeping them from having a much worse meltdown than they did have.
Was it simply good fortune that the nuclear accidents at Fukushima and Chernobyl weren't far more deadly? Or is it possible that the UFOs eyewitnesses spotted were responsible for averting these catastrophes when humans were powerless to do so?
On April the 25th, 1986, I was with Dr. George King in Arizona, USA. We were there by the banks of Lake Powell in a hotel, and we were scheduled to go out on the lake that day. At 9:30 a.m., he received a communication from an extraterrestrial source in my presence, instructing him not to go out that day, but instead to arrange a series of operations, spiritual energy operations, because a devastating catastrophe was due to occur. He started these operations in about half an hour after that, and less than 5 hours later, the Chernobyl disaster struck. Now, the news of Chernobyl didn't reach the West at all for several days. But during those days, the Ethereal Society, under the direction of extraterrestrial sources, I know this sounds far out, but you can check it out, was operational with a whole program of spiritual energy output in direct cooperation with these extraterrestrial sources. Chernobyl was a disaster. No one can say it wasn't. It was a terrible thing, but it could have been far, far worse. And in 1986, in our journal Cosmic Voice, we published the fact that we cooperated during this period and that the impact, the devastating results from Chernobyl were far less than they would have been had we not so cooperated. By the way, because the world didn't know about it, other organizations, massive ones like even the Vatican and so on, only commenced their prayer activities days after it happened. Now I'm going to read you an extract from a book called UFOs and the Extraterrestrial Message, which I wrote, which describes what happened 16 years later. On September the 16th, 2002, the Russian journal Pravda published a most extraordinary report. This stated that while the explosion at Chernobyl in April 1986 was very large, it was luckily only a thermal blast. The fourth power generating unit was basically destroyed by overheated steam, but there was no nuclear explosion. At the time, the reactor contained approximately 180 tons of enriched uranium, and had a large blast occurred, half of Europe would currently not be depicted on any maps, it said. Even more remarkably, Pravda theorized that this apparent stroke of luck was due to help from a UFO, which had been seen by hundreds of people for 6 hours, hovering above the fourth generating unit of the Chernobyl plant. An eyewitness described it as a ball of fire slowly flying in the sky, some 20 to 26 feet in diameter. He described how two rays of crimson light stretched towards the fourth unit, while the object was some 300 yards from the reactor. This event lasted for about 3 minutes before the lights from the UFO disappeared and it flew off in a northwesterly direction. Pravda concluded that the UFO brought the radiation level down, decreasing it by almost 4 times, and it was this that prevented a nuclear blast. The Russian journal surmised that alien beings are worried about the planet's environment, and in this they could not be more correct.